Sonic 3 is absolutely stomping Mufasa the Lion King from Disney. There's no ifs, ands, or but. Nearly 2-1 in the North American market. But Disney is trying to tell you that Mufasa is the biggest thing in the world right now. Well, technically, they're correct. But of course, that's devoid of some incredibly important context that they have left out. And that is Sonic 3 isn't open in the rest of the world yet. But what's great about this is that things are getting so bad for Disney, and we're projecting a very bad 2025 for Disney, that they're now actually getting community noted in real time on X with their BS. And maybe, just maybe, yours truly had made a couple of posts several hours that happened before the community note that might have had some impact on it. I'm not sure, but we're going to talk about how bad things are right now because Sonic 3 looks like it's doing fantastic. And Disney looks like they might be losing at least $200 million on this Lion King nonsense.
Renegade Online.
There are headlines out there that Disney themselves are putting out that Mufasa, the biggest thing in the world. Yeah, while technically that is correct, they're getting curb stomped literally 2-1 in the U.S. by Sonic the Hedgehog 3. And what they're not telling you with that headline is that Sonic 3 hasn't even opened in 80% of international countries yet. So, yeah, Disney's trying to ride the lightning bolt here to make it seem like Mufasa's a big... It isn't. It's trash. It's absolute trash. Disney's being destroyed. And as we've been telling you now for months, the Walt Disney Company, I think, at this point, I think the Walt Disney Company is staring down the double 12-gauge shotgun barrel of an absolutely terrifying 2025. We've already seen how well Inside Out 2 is translating to other Disney children's, quote-unquote, children's animated fare. Moana 2, big opening, fast crash. Mufasa, the Lion King, instant death. This was 5 days ago. Sonic the Hedgehog 3 was supposed to outrun Mufasa, but the lion, Mufasa, Disney's The Lion King will roar to $180 million in a global opening preview. That didn't happen. That did not happen. Sonic 3 absolutely trucked, and I mean trucked, The Lion King. But Disney was desperately, and I mean desperately, counting on the international box office to salvage the embarrassment that Jim Carrey and Paramount was about to deliver.
And we never saw this coming, folks. We did not tell you explicitly that they would do this right before they did it. We would never do that.
Never told you that. Yeah, it didn't happen. 125 million is what they're expecting now for global Lion King box office, down from 180 million 5 days ago. Folks, if I told you that a movie made 120 million, but the expectation was that it would be literally 50% higher coming into the weekend, you would probably tell me that I didn't know what the hell I was talking about when I made that projection. And you'd be right. This is bad. I saw Sonic the Hedgehog 3 last night. Renegade Jr. and I went to go see it. I thought it was a blast. We had a great time. I love the fact that Disney paid to have the trailer for Captain Falcon before the movie. I was shocked there was no trailer for Snow White.
It always blows my mind how far ahead we are from the average investor in knowing this stuff. And
Wall Street ought to be terrified of
Wall
Disney
Street ought
right
to be
now.
paying attention to the show is what they ought to be doing.
Yeah.
Let me give you 2 points before we dive in, Valiant, that I think are really important. Point number one is people need to understand that this weekend does not operate as a normal box office weekend in a very peculiar way. And this week is not going to operate as a typical box office week. So we need to break down for you, because of the schedule and because of Christmas, how the box office plays. So what you need to understand is Sonic and Mufasa had to make most of their money Thursday, Friday, and somewhat Saturday because this is a heavy travel weekend. And so to some degree, and you can debate to what degree, but to some degree, the box office suffers prior to a midweek Christmas holiday because people are going to the airports, they're hitting the interstates, they're going to their families, to their homes for Christmas. And so that cuts into the latter half of the weekend for these movies. But that's not a problem because they'll make it up, and they'll make it up. This is weird, okay? Because Christmas lands on a Wednesday, Monday can be a big day for the box office, and that's never true. But Monday can be a pretty big day, but then Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So the second weekend matters way more than usual. And at the same time, Christmas Eve and Christmas can be very wonky, right? Those are strange days.
Well, I was going to say,
yeah.
I was going to say, the drop off tomorrow, I think for these two films will be interesting to observe. But the problem is Christmas Eve, which is Tuesday.
Yeah,
Christmas Eve,
over.
Typically it's one of the worst box office, one of the worst days of the year for cinemas. People do not go to the movies on Christmas Eve. They're too busy doing Christmas prep. And I mean, when we saw Spider-Man No Way Home 2 years ago, whatever it was now, and it raked in, what was it? It was like $19 million on Christmas Eve. But I think that was a Thursday that year. That was insane. That was one of the biggest Christmas Eves, if not the biggest Christmas Eve ever. I don't see that happening again. Because the time Christmas lands on a Wednesday this week, which is about the worst. It is the worst. Pardon me, the worst day of the week for Christmas to land on, structurally, and Christmas Eve on a Tuesday. I don't. Here's the thing. By the time we get into the second weekend with Mufasa and with Sonic is going to be opened up in substantially more international markets than it was this weekend. Disney is trying to sell the lie, or not really the lie. That's not fair. They were the biggest thing globally this weekend, but they were the biggest thing globally this weekend by the fact that they literally had no competition outside of the United States because Sonic isn't opening anywhere else till next weekend.
Right.
And meanwhile, Sonic stomped them 2-1 here in the U.S.
Okay, so here's point 2 on that stomping, okay, on the drubbing. Okay, so now the audience is aware that this past weekend was or the weekend that we're in operates strangely, and the rest of the week operates strangely. So you know to see behind the curtain of how this works. The industry understands it. Now you do too. Okay, point 2. If you are the cinemas and Disney has pressured you to give every IMAX, every premium screen, almost every 3D, like all of it's going to Lion King. And you made
Well, they haven't gotten everyone. They've got half of them.
Okay, but you get
about half. Yeah.
Sub 40 million. What that means is that you're leaving your best theaters out to dry if you're playing Lion King, and they cannot be happy with that.
No, that's just it. That's what I was thinking this weekend when I went to the theater. Went last night. I posted on X and I said, bloodbath confirmed, baby. I mean, the Lion King theater, we showed up to go into Sonic, and there was lots of people walking into that theater. Lion King had just let out, and virtually nobody was walking out of that theater. And the numbers bear it out. 4,100 screens for Disney this weekend for this opening. 4,100 and about 340 less or fewer for Sonic 3. Look at the per theater average. That is a bloodbath. 16,500 per theater for Sonic. Mufasa standing at 8,500. If you are AMC, if you are Regal, Cinemark, Marcus, go on down the line. Right now, you're looking at this going, wish we'd have allocated a few more to Sonic. The ratio should have been flipped. And I have a feeling, I mean, these theaters will be dropping out. If Disney holds to standard fare, then I would suspect that Mufasa has a guaranteed 2 weekends.
Yep.
That's usually how it works. 2 weekends in PLF, premium large format screens, before the theaters have the option to move them out, which is unfortunate because that means perhaps, unless they can work something out, that on Christmas Day in a few days, Nosferatu, the remake of the 1920s classic, is coming out. There's a lot of buzz around this. I have a feeling that theaters are going to be hoping to be able to put Nosferatu in the PLFs and like move Lion King out. Because if Lion King was only able to juice 35 million this weekend when Sonic did nearly double that, which movie you going to cut? You're going to want to put the counter programming in.
My amateur 2 cents. Once again, we are seeing no franchise will go by itself anymore. We saw it with Marvel. We talked about this in the middle of this year. The era of the franchise, the automatic press and play, make your billion. Lion King was supposed to be bulletproof. It's even a bona fide Disney creation.
Disney proper. Ron's exactly right.
That's right.
This is as Disney at this point in time as arguably, coming out in a few months, Snow White. And I think we're going to see something very similar with Snow White. I want to show everybody how bad this is. Let's look back five short years. The Lion King 2019, the quote unquote, not really live action remake, but it was done by a man that has a little bit more heart and soul, I think, than Barry Jenkins, who, again, to remind everybody, we covered this story in the last couple of weeks. The director of the new Lion King came out and really tried to distance himself from what he perceived was an impending failure. The director of the movie, Barry Jenkins, who had no experience doing any project of anywhere near this scale. The largest thing I think that Barry Jenkins had worked on before Mufasa, the Lion King, was a budget of roughly 5% or less than what was spent on the Lion King. And he even said, I've never done digital movie filmmaking before, and it's not my forte. This was an interview that he gave after the movie was finished. Just saying actually, that.
To be fair, it would have been much less rational for him to say that before he started.
Right. Because for Barry Jenkins, it's like, these retards want to give me a $10 million check to do what? Okay. I'm like, yeah, sure. Collect the check. Here it is. The Lion King 2019. 2019, Disney put this banger out. Raked in $1.6 billion. If we translated this into 2024 ticket prices, this movie is somewhere close to $2.3 to $2.4 billion globally in 2024 ticket price. Just to give you an idea. And we are now looking at the effectively a follow-up to this movie from 5 years ago, Mufasa, The Lion King. This is what the estimates are for this weekend, the opening weekend. I'm going to tell you right now, this is my final projection for Mufasa, The Lion King. This movie doesn't break 300 million.
Ooh. Okay, so $200
and I'm being
million
really generous.
$200 million production is what they're claiming.
Yep.
We all know what that means.
Yep.
We've heard $200 million marketing because they spent a lot to try to make sure this did not happen.
I hadn't heard that high. I was hearing about 150 is what I was thinking, but even still, fine. I mean, I was thinking they had 300. They needed, for this movie, they needed 700 to 750 million global retail to break even. This movie opened with 122, and this is a global opening. This was a virtually 100% unified opening. And just to show you, 12-19, 12-19, 12-18, 12-20, 12-19, 12-18. It opened everywhere. It opened everywhere this week. Okay? It's dead. I'm going to put the loss for this movie for Disney right now after 3 days, Valiant Renegade calculation, between 150 and 200 million.
Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.